Last time, I reviewed a black and white crime thriller with a simple but effective premise, and broke down why it was consistently tense when a lot of other thriller or even horror stories end up very boring. Now, instead of comparing a good example to bad ones, I'm going to focus on the best qualities of a single short film from a 1995 anime anthology, Magnetic Rose. I'll probably title this Horror in Anime Done Right rather than Horror in Film, because coming from someone who enjoys spooky stories in any medium, there is a surprising lack of well-executed horror in anime. But Magnetic Rose manages to pull off psychological cosmic horror in a way that makes perfect use of animation and of its limited runtime. It begins with a distress signal which a crew of astronauts track to a graveyard of ships in deep space. They send two of their crew, a half-naked Himbro and totally not Yuri from Planets, to investigate the seemingly abandoned station. They enter cautiously, ready to face the source of danger and rescue whoever is left alive. A call for help in such a remote location causes both the audience and the characters to expect the worst. But what they find inside is an unnaturally quiet, elegant palace. The only sign of life is a young woman in red, whose image greets them in nearly every room, though it's just that, an image. She sings in malfunctioning holograms and poses in photographs, evidence of her wealth placed wherever it can fit. Miguel is drawn into the luxury all around him, excited to become this lady's knight in shining armor, while Heinz keeps his guard up. Thanks to dialogue between them, as well as earlier scenes of distinct characterization for the entire crew, we have already learned just enough about the characters to understand their behavior. And then, there are significant gaps in dialogue. We have moments to take in the station's emptiness, to peek down its endless castle-like hallways and lower our voices. When the score dies down, it's almost as if you're being told to brace yourself for a jump scare, except that time passes and nothing jumps at you. Further in, a closet of dresses crumble at a touch, and a table fully set with delicacies turns out to be long spoiled. Heinz and Miguel split up, and Miguel loses himself in interactions with the lady in red. He isn't sure whether to be unsettled or ecstatic that her holograms feel so real to him, but why are the holograms malfunctioning like this? Are they even really holograms? The characters don't ask these questions because they don't need to. Even as we, the audience, wonder what is happening, we pretty much know the answer and are just refusing to accept it. Or, like Heinz, who has now found himself in the rotten underbelly of the station, we have lost track of where we are and have ended up someplace between a facade and a memory. At this point, the short film has more of a grip on me than most full-length movies would have had in the same amount of time. Even better than tension, there's a sense of dread that makes the story stick in your mind even after you've watched it. Before I continue, I should clarify the difference. Tension is created when you place your characters at a disadvantage and pile problem after problem for them to solve. It's the anticipation of danger. Dread is created when your characters are powerless. It's the realization of something unchangeable, or of danger that is unknowable. A fantastic example of dread is the scene that convinced me I had to talk about Magnetic Rose. It's brief, only about 2 minutes and 7 seconds, but the detailed, lifelike animation and subtle sound design make it effectively disturbing. Heinz enjoys a peaceful meal with his wife and daughter Emily back on Earth. Hand-picked flowers on their table, a gentle breeze playing with the window curtains. He's content to sit with his coffee, listening to them when he notices the flowers begin to twist themselves. Unnoticed by his family, they lose their original color, die, then morph into blood red roses. The expression on his face is enough to tell us that, suddenly, he has remembered where he is. As if waking from a nightmare, he stumbles back out of his chair, out of his house, to see the artificial likeness of his daughter disintegrating. Where his wife once sat across from her is the lady in red, a smirk on her face that is not quite a hologram and not quite alive. He is alone, still separated from the rest of his crew, and now he knows that whatever inhabits the station doesn't plan to let him leave. Let's take a look at why the horror in this scene and the rest of the short film works so well. Here are 4 specific things you'll find in any film, game, or book that causes you to fear the worst and leaves you unsettled. Setup and expectation, which is the premise of the horrific location or event. False security, which is fair reason to not anticipate or believe in danger, usually helped by the expectations your characters and audience have. Room to fear, which is space in the action or dialogue where you allow the audience to put themselves in the character's shoes and take in the environment. Point of no return, which is a turning point in the story, usually for the worse, that cannot be undone. To summarize, Hines and Miguel enter the station in answer to a distress call that they know may or may not be legitimate, not under the impression that they would eventually be the ones in need of rescuing. Seeing no real signs of life after a reasonable amount of searching, they let their guards down and split up. Neither of them behave in a way that earns them the trap they walk into, but the further they explore, the more difficult it becomes to turn back. And by the time they've identified that they're in danger at all, it's already too late. I won't spoil the end since I really want you to check this out for yourself. You can even read the source material created by Katsuhiro Otomo for Magnetic Rose, as well as for the other short films of the anthology. Let me know what you think if you do, and thanks a lot for watching.